everybody. Welcome back to another episode with the Wild Thoughts podcast.
Yes,
Woo!
welcome.
Yeah. So today we're going to be talking about rejection, just rejection in general, why we fear rejection, how to overcome it, and just addressing those kind of topics. And later you guys can let us know if you want to see more episodes like this or more specific type of rejection types. I think we want to just discuss like what rejection is and like understanding like on a more deeper level and kind of like dissecting it. Mm-hmm. So rejection, like in simple terms, is really like just the act of like pushing something or someone. Now we're talking specifically about someone away. So kind of excluding, like saying no to someone. And it can happen in everyday life. It can happen in smaller scales, bigger scales. So really we go through it like all the time, but some of them may affect us on a deeper level, and sometimes I don't think we realize like the smaller actions are rejection, because it's just like a no, or I don't know, like anything.
Well, I think like rejection, like you were saying, it happens in everyday life. So sometimes the smaller scale ones kind of like don't phase us because we're so used to it.
Exactly.
So when something bigger happens, that's when it really affects us.
Yeah. And I feel like it can also depend like what meaning we put towards certain things. Like, you know, if it's like something in your career or something you've been working really hard for, you like build up the confidence. So when you associate rejection with like not being good enough, so then that can really like destroy your confidence, I think. But then like you said, like smaller things, sometimes it doesn't really like affect us.
I think it usually is related to like an end goal that you have.
True.
And that's why it affects you so much, because you're like, wow, I really wanted to work towards this, but I couldn't. And I couldn't get there. You know?
That's so sad. Like the way I couldn't get.
Sorry.
No, it's okay. And usually like the reason why we do feel bad is because rejection is associated with like feeling shame, you know, guilt, sadness. So it's kind of like these negative emotions that we perceive. But I think that if you look at it on a bigger scale, like bigger picture, it doesn't have to be negative, and it could actually maybe be helpful. So I think it's all like perspective. And some different like types of rejection and ways it can happen. So rejection, like we said, can happen in everything. So it can be like familial, for example, like, you know, if it's abuse or neglect, abandonment, even like as a child and things like that. It could be in a romantic relationship, like, I don't know, let's say you're into somebody and they kind of like reject you and don't feel the same way, friend zoning. And then in friendships too, if you feel like are excluded from certain plans, you know, you may feel rejected or like question like, oh, why did they do that? Why did they do that? Why did I say
What's that voice?
I don't know. It's my rejection voice. And then even in work and career, I think about that one a lot too. I think it's like a big thing, but just like, you know, applying for something new or just putting yourself out there for like a goal you had career wise. And then it could also happen in like social rejection. So that could be bullying, alienation, just basically
being excluded.
Excluded. And I guess bullying is like because friendship could be it is kind of social, no?
Yeah, but social is more like people you don't know.
Oh, you don't know rejecting you, basically. Okay, that makes sense.
And like all of these examples were all very common.
Yeah. Exactly.
So I think that's why you were saying like sometimes you don't realize that it is rejection, but it is.
Yeah, exactly. Now, obviously, why do we fear rejection? So now we're going to kind of look into like deeper meanings to why it scares us. I think it's pretty obvious that like rejection makes you feel like an outsider. It makes you feel excluded, not wanted, and nobody wants to feel like not wanted.
Yeah.
And I think, like we said, we associate it with like our worth, our self-esteem. So it brings us down, and you don't want to
That's a heavy hitter.
Yeah, like, exactly. Like, it's just like societal validation, you know? You want to be like included in everything. Yeah. So yeah, like Kathy had said before, it's usually like a goal or something we've been working on, something we've wanted for a long time. And like, if we don't get it, and like if we put not our hopes up, but we have like everything in line for us to get it, and then but you never know, you can't control the other side. Exactly. And then not getting it obviously is really hurtful, and it, like you said, it like hits the ego because it's your confidence, it's like your worth, and it's like you not seeing the same picture as the other side almost.
Yeah, and everything that hits your self-worth, that just like tears you down.
Yeah, exactly. We like, it's so funny because rejection doesn't mean you have low self-worth. It's how we associate it.
It's not a personal attack usually.
Yeah,
because
exactly.
like the bullying example, it's kind of a personal attack.
Yeah.
But like
that's when rejection because they're insecure.
In the instance like let's say like work, it's usually not personal. It's just like they might have a better candidate. Exactly. You're just not that fit for the role, and you can find something else in the meantime.
Oh, speaking about that, I was watching a TED talk about rejection because I felt inspired this morning.
Smart.
It was short, and he was just talking about like how like career wise, like he was like, if Michael Jordan's coach didn't like get it and not take him on the team, would he be the best basketball player? And like sometimes, and he was saying how it's we mentioned it, but like redirection and in career, I think it hurts a lot in career because it's like fact based. It's like qualifications and like requirements. So like you said, it's not personal, but sometimes it's like maybe that job is just not meant for you.
Exactly.
Maybe it's not what you perceive. So although it's like it can be like an emotional thing, it can actually like trigger a physical pain. And this was proven, like for example, physically getting hurt, rejection can like trigger those same feelings, and it can activate basically like regions in the brain that involves like sensory components. So that's why you may feel like actual pain and also emotional components of pain.
I was reading the way that your brain interprets it is in the same path between emotional and physical pain, and that's why like there's a thin line
between it.
And that's why we have as an example a breakup. You know when people like die of a broken heart,
like they're so sad, they like
and like
what do you mean they die of broken heart? Like they just
there's a thing that you can die of a broken heart, and I think that's why, because it affects you physically. And your brain is like,
that makes
I don't know what's
sense.
happening. Because I never understood that until I read this.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah. That makes sense though. Because I feel like rejection causes like just like the emotional distress, which like moves onto your body. And I guess your brain, like you said, like it has the same path. That's pretty scary.
It is. Moving on, kind of similar, but now we're going to talk about how the fear of rejection affects us. So there's some short-term and long-term effects. So in the short term, it reduces our cognitive task because we're so distracted by the rejection that we like our mind gets foggy. We don't know what we're doing. We can't perform at, let's say, at work or in our everyday lives anymore because we're so distracted by it.
Yeah, I can relate to that. Like sometimes like even though it wasn't really projection, I'm just like taking things my boss says sometimes personally, and then I just be like looking at my computer screen. Oh my god, like right through
in a daze.
I was talking to a friend about it, and they were like the same way. Just like you just like can't function.
Yeah. But that's a short-term effect. And then obviously because it's an ego hit, you can get aggressive and even like increase in violence and violent behavior. Yeah. Those are kind of extreme effects though. Your selfish behavior grows because let's say you're rejected. It obviously, what like the saying, ego, it affects your self-worth and like your confidence. So like you kind of turn that around and be like, no, but I'm better than you. Like, why are you rejecting me?
That makes sense.
So you become more selfish because you're trying to like, but basically you're trying to protect yourself by turning it around to be like I'm better. You're trying to trick your mind basically. Also, you get a reduce in self-regulation. So you can't think clearly, basically. And
like logically.
Logically, you can't regulate things in your everyday life because you're so distracted again by the rejection. And it just takes over.
Rejection is such a deep thing that I feel like
exactly.
Don't realize.
And then it might also cause some ongoing long-term effects that can affect you psychologically. So these are also extreme cases. Obviously this won't happen to everyone, but so the first one is trauma. So if you're a child and you're constantly being rejected or neglected by your parents, a lot of the times it's going to cause some internal trauma that stays with you for a long time. It's going to affect your relationship with others because you're always going to feel like, do they actually like me? Are they going to just kick me out at some point? Like, especially like at school and stuff like that. So that really affects you. And they might even develop a chronic fear of rejection, which is going to cause other traumatic events in their early life because they're always worried about it.
Exactly. And I feel like it stops you from like taking more steps or doing things in life because of that fear.
You're not going to want to be risky about anything. Then again, another example is depression, obviously extreme case. I was reading that it's higher in teenage girls.
Yeah, it could be like, like a statistically like.
Yeah, I don't know if because like like stereotypically teenage girls are always chasing after boys and the boys are gonna drink. I don't know if it's something like that.
Maybe they just, it's harder for them to process the rejection.
And like even in friendships, I feel like girls always want to stick together. So if they're not in a friend group, that might also cause it. So stuff like that.
Apparently, I guess in general, more emotionally wired. So
that might be why it's higher in teenage girls. But it can also stem from bullying and being ostracized by others, which can cause stress, eating disorders, self-harm, and obviously depression.
It makes sense though, because like teenage girl, it's like the girls have more pressure, especially in high school and all of that. Like, look how you look, I don't know, anything, like what you own, what like materialistic things. So maybe, like you said, they have more like standards. So that's why they have that pressure, and they tend to like depression tends to hit
very
more.
true. So another one is pain response. So this is what we were saying before, which there's the fine line between emotional and physical pain. So it could cause you physical pain, and this is what I was saying, where it's in the same path in your brain, which is why sometimes your brain can differentiate it between it. But it's obviously only going to happen if you're like rejected in an extreme scenario. It's not going to happen every time you're rejected.
Exactly. You're not going to feel like this like
unless
stabbing pain.
Imagine. But unless you're someone that really deeply feels everything and takes everything as a personal attack, that might happen.
Exactly.
But anyways, we have ways to overcome this rejection. And then obviously it can cause anxiety and stress because, again, you're always going to be worried about being rejected in any aspect of your life. So obviously you might get some mental health issues because of it, like an anxiety disorder. And then lastly, there's also abuse. So like I was saying, in the short term, you can become more aggressive and violent if you're constantly being rejected. So if this is something that's happening throughout your whole life, then you're going to get angry about it. Obviously.
And like frustrated.
So there was a study conducted on a group of people, and it was mostly male members that had a higher chance of becoming abusive in intimate relationships. And it was because they had a high amount of parental rejection in their childhood. So everything kind of goes back to trauma. And that's kind of why this happens, and it might cause some like PTSD because of it, and that's why they become more abusive. So lastly, there's something that's called rejection sensitivity. People who have high amounts of rejection in their life become very sensitive to it, to the point where they're so fearful and averse to this rejection that it impacts their daily lives. So that's what I was saying before, where like you're constantly worried that like that's the only thing on your mind. You just don't want to be rejected. You just want to be accepted and loved by other people.
So you avoid certain. It's kind of like, this can necessarily apply, but for example, like when women, have a crush on a guy and don't want to make the first move, like it's obviously also societal pressure. But I think sometimes it can, like, for me, like I'm scared of rejection because I've gotten rejected, like, when I was super young, like Afiyat the rat from last story. God. So I feel like that, like literally, I processed it and like I realized like that's why, because I'm like scared of rejection.
For sure, there's like different, there's different degrees.
Exactly. It's not like super intense.
But I think this is like actually
like super. This is different because it's like sensitivity.
This is like a diagnosis.
Exactly.
People that have rejection sensitivity, they're always looking for a sign that someone doesn't want them, especially in like romantic or friendship relationships. So they often have certain behaviors that kind of like push people away because they don't want to be the ones rejected first.
Exactly. So they just kind of do it.
That's like they put their guard up and they're like, don't come too close because you're gonna walk away from me, and I don't want that to happen. Basically, I also read that it was common with people that have ADHD. When it's with someone that has ADHD, there's something that is called rejection sensitive dysphoria. So when that happens, people that with ADHD often overthink. So they become self-critical. They have higher anxiety in social situations because they don't want to be seen as the outsider. And they may even have like a wave of extreme sadness that is just like taking over their life. After they think they've been rejected. So it could not even be that they've actually been
rejected.
But if they have the thought that they will be, or kind of happened, but they're not sure.
Yeah,
They have
exactly.
this wave of sadness
Oh
that
my
comes over
God.
them.
I
Yeah,
guess it depends how you like interpret certain things.
sure.
Yeah. I feel like people who may have disorders, for example, like, well, ADHD, that is it a yeah,
It
it's
is
like a disorder, yeah. Or any other type, rejection might hit harder because you're already kind of the outsider in a way, let's say. Well, I'm sure there are people that can relate, but for example,
Yeah.
like majority wise,
The way you think.
yeah, exactly, it's not the norm.
Yeah.
So then like it just may hit them in a different way, in a more extreme way, which I feel like that makes sense.
Yeah. If you're super sensitive about rejection, it causes you to like always feel insecure in your relationships. You never feel like you're fully in.
Yeah.
Exactly like I was saying before, because you're trying to push them away because you're scared that they're not going to fully accept you. Yeah. And you tend to overreact whenever something happens because, again, you're trying to shield yourself from getting hurt.
Yeah. Whoa.
Yeah.
That's crazy. That's a lot.
So there's a lot that can happen when you become rejected. So like next time you're rejecting someone, let's let them down easy.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But I guess it's also you have to make that work.
Exactly.
But I know sometimes it can be like you can't control as much, like rejection sensitivity and like things that are happening in your childhood. Like it's really things that you have to like think about consciously and try and change, so it can be difficult, but if you can, then there are we'll give some ways to help.
Yeah, so we're gonna go into how to overcome rejection and how to basically mend your broken heart.
Yeah, exactly. So our first tip, through research and our own advice, obviously, kind of look at rejection as redirection, and like how we were saying about Michael Jordan and how look at it as an opportunity to maybe take a different path, or do something differently, and don't take it always. Well, just, yes, sometimes it can be personal, but try not to let it affect you, because like, for example, let's say it's like friends or a bully or something like that. Well, first of all, the bully probably doesn't, like, it's someone you don't know. Issues. Yeah, exactly. Because I was actually in the TED Talk that I was watching, they were talking about this. It's usually people, they're projecting onto you, which is why they're rejecting you. Yeah. They have their own insecurities. To make themselves feel better, they exclude others, you know? So it's like not really personal when you think about it. You may think it is, but it's really an issue within the other person.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. And then for friendships, I feel like obviously that is more on a personal level, but then, you know, just reevaluate. Is it something maybe you did, or like open the floor to communication, maybe? Yeah.
But it could also, the thing is, when we're saying don't take it personally, is because a lot of the times it's on the other person. Like,
yeah, exactly.
Let's say if you're trying to date someone, but they don't want to date you, it's not you. It could be you're just not what they're looking for.
Yeah.
Same thing with work, and same thing with friendships too. Maybe like, yes, you could have been friends and maybe they're starting to exclude you, but it could be just like you're not clicking anymore.
Yeah, exactly. So like, I think it's just like the way that you look at it, like we said, and don't look at it like super negatively or like it's the end of the world. Yeah. It can obviously be sad and like traumatizing or hurtful, but yeah, just look at it as a step to look in a different direction. Go for a different path, whether it's a job, whether it's a friendship. And sometimes, you know what, like maybe you did something, like whether it's friendship, that you need to question. And it can be like a self-growth moment, you know? It's actually like, rejection is a good thing. I think it allows you to like really think actively, and you grow, you learn, you experience.
Yes.
So let's not associate like a lot of or put too much like pressure on rejection.
Yeah, I think you have to reevaluate the situation where it happened, and that's going into the next point, daily journaling.
Of course. It's like mentioned once an episode.
Yeah, but honestly, journaling has so many benefits, and especially in these situations, you don't need to really journal every day if you can't do it. But let's say you go through a rejection experience. I think it's good to write everything that happened down.
Yeah.
So then you can reevaluate the situation and be like, okay, is it something that I did? Is it something that I can improve on? Or was it on the other person? And now I can take my different direction and work towards the goal that I wanted.
Yeah.
So there's research behind it that like writing down your feelings and like looking at it and working through them will help you work through all the negative feelings faster. And it's allowing you to acknowledge your emotions and validate your own feelings, so that after you can look at it and work past it and question yourself and grow from it.
Yeah, exactly. Sometimes something happened, okay, you're rejected, you move on kind of in a way, and it's not like Like you said, if it's not on your part.
Yeah, it's not something that you can control, like you said
Yeah.
before, and you can't stop it.
Yeah.
So it's more about like letting it happen and learning from it.
Exactly. And rejection, I'm sorry, but it's unavoidable. It's gonna
Exactly.
happen like
If
in
you
some way
haven't-
or another.
Yeah, if you haven't been rejected in your life, you haven't lived life.
Yeah.
Like that's like honestly.
Or you interpreted something maybe not as like you didn't
Yeah.
read too much into it, like small things. Yeah. Then another way, which we kind of mentioned, just practice kind of accepting it. Like we said, like you take it in and you move on, kind of. You move on. No, but not in a insensitive way. It's like we just said, it's just like even journaling will allow you to accept it. You reevaluate, you take in the emotions, and you kind of proceed with your life without associating it with like this big, like, oh my God, this is like an obstacle in my life. Because rejection isn't necessarily an obstacle. I think it can make you stuck and like question yourself. But sometimes it's just like, it just is what it is.
Yeah.
You accept it, you take in the emotions, and you continue. You try something else that you may succeed in. And well, not that rejection is a failure, but I mean, it's a redirection, like we said. So
Full circle. But it also doesn't mean that like if you're in an extreme situation where you're being neglected or like bullied and stuff like that, don't just accept that.
Yeah, exactly.
Like you have to fight through that and kind of like push back, because that you shouldn't be putting yourself in a situation just accepting
constantly
something
being
that's,
bullied
like,
by other people, for sure. Like maybe that can be like, obviously the
it's something
acceptance
unhealthy.
depends like what you're going through. If you're being bullied, for sure you can take action, and know like that your self-worth is not associated with what someone else thinks of you, a random person.
Okay, so our last tip is to emotionally distance yourself from the situation. So a lot of the times when we take a step back and kind of like put yourself like as a third person looking at it, you can kind of, again, just evaluate the situation and kind of put yourself in a more positive mindset and be like, okay, yes, I got rejected in this instant, but it doesn't mean that I'm going to be rejected from this whole situation altogether. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
No, it makes sense.
It was a bit weird. I'll give an example. Like, let's say if like you're trying to go after someone and like they don't like you and they say they don't like you like that, it doesn't mean that you're going to be single forever.
Like you said, it makes sense. It's not that you're like rejected from the whole topic of like romance. It's just that one person is not for you, and that's
exactly.
okay.
And by removing yourself from the situation, you can kind of let your negative thoughts dissipate. Is that the way to say it?
Like disappear basically,
more quickly, so that you can just move on from it and find your new path. Okay,
some nice recommendations on overcoming rejection.
Yes, so we did ask a question of the week, and like we did last week, we're gonna start saying them at the end of the episode. So we asked you guys, what are your tips on overcoming rejection? So we got a few responses. So
perfect way to end.
Yes. So they said, I think to myself, they don't deserve me, and move on.
Oh, okay.
Yes. Get on that self-worth train. Remind myself, I don't want to put myself in a situation where I'm not wanted. That's a really nice way to say that.
Okay.
Yeah, I like that. It just takes time for the sting to go away. Let yourself feel sad for a second, then move on with your life.
Very true.
Exactly what we're saying. So daily journal, you can feel your feelings.
Exactly. Write it out.
Yeah. And lastly, it's a learning process to grow from the specific experience. Okay, you guys said it perfectly.
Yeah, that's pretty much our whole episode.
Yeah, you summed everything up. Thanks. We hope you guys enjoyed this episode. If you did, please like this video, subscribe to our YouTube channel, leave a comment, follow us on all the podcast platforms if you're listening to this instead. We're on Spotify, Google Podcasts, Apple Podcasts, and everywhere else that you listen to it. Follow us on Instagram and TikTok at Wild Thoughts Pod, and follow us individually. Everything is linked down below. And this is the end of season 7.
Oh my God, 70 episodes.
We made it.
Oh, crazy.
Is
this 69 or 7? No, this is 70.
The big 7-0. We'll see you in the next one. Bye.